We will call this regular session of the Carmel Clay School Board meeting to order on Monday, September 23rd. Roll call, Madam Secretary.
Board member Leda Spandenberg is absent tonight. All other board members are present.
Thank you. I'm going to go out on the ledge here. I'm going to trust those Carmel High School students to lead us in the pledge. So if you're a Carmel High School, all you have to do is say the first words and we'll jump in. So please join us for the pledge. Thank you. If my kids were here, they would have been going, Dad, don't call us out. So first of all, I'd like to welcome all of our special guests. We've got a lot of special presentations that we are looking forward to this evening. After each presentation, we will pause for a photo opportunity. So parents, you can join in as well. And then after the last presentation, we will take a 2-second break. Dr. Beresford, don't socialize too much. For those of you that do not want to stay for the public hearings and the rest of the meeting, we understand it is a school night. So the first presentation on tonight's agenda, I invite to the podium Ms. Brittany Wiseman.
Hello, I'm so excited we get to go first because there's so many amazing things, so you can hear about us too. So I'm here to present for FCCLA, and it stands for Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America. It is a national career and technical student organization focusing on making a difference by addressing important personal, work, and societal issues. And so we were so excited that Carmel High School was able to send 12 members from FCCLA and FCCLA Culinary to the National Convention in Anaheim, California, so not a bad place to go to compete. And we had some national top winners that I'd like to recognize tonight. So first up is Felicia Sanders. So Felicia Sanders, she's currently a junior, and she earned first place in fashion construction, which also granted her a full year of tuition at FIDM. It's a very prestigious fashion institution. It stands for Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandising, and you probably have heard about it from several fashion reality TV shows as well. And she created a garment inspired by Snow White and the Huntsman. It was absolutely amazing. I have to say that after the fashion show at Carmel High School, I quickly went up to her and asked for her picture. So it was just so good. So I'm so excited that on the national level she was recognized. So congratulations again, Felicia. We're so excited to see what you do this year. And then we have our culinary team. So they're seniors Emily Daly, Madison Dial, and Natalie Walters. They earned second place nationally in baking and pastry. They all received a full tuition scholarship to Sullivan University. They had to produce 3 different recipes in front of the judges. And what makes this even more exciting is this was the first year that they had this specific category. So they were really kind of going in, not knowing what to expect, and they still won second in the nation, which is absolutely fantastic. So congratulations to these ladies. And a huge thank you. We have both voluntary sponsors here this evening. So if we could have Family Consumer Science Chair Nancy Spencer come up here. She's one of our FCCLA sponsors. And also we have our very own chef, Nick Carter, who helped our culinary team. So just congratulations again to the wonderful CTE students in the Family Consumer Science Department. We are so proud of you, and we can't wait to celebrate you again this time next year. Congratulations.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you, and Dr. Harmus is already up on cue. Thank you.
Thank you. We've all heard, we've all read, we've all hopefully seen our boys swim team in action. And this year is as the national champions for 2019. Two of those young men traveled to Europe this summer to represent the United States in the FINA Swimming Junior World Championships. I'd like to introduce those two young men right now, and they will come up and tell you a little bit about their accomplishments. Wyatt Davis and also Jake Mitchell.
Hi, I'm Jake Mitchell. I'm a senior at Carmel High School, and I was lucky enough to represent the United States and Carmel in Budapest, like they said. I competed in the 400-meter freestyle. I placed 4th, 7th in the mile freestyle, which is 1,500 meters, and 7th also in the 800-meter freestyle. And then I was on a 800-meter freestyle relay that won gold and broke a world junior record. And yeah.
Hello, I'm Wyatt Davis. I'm also a senior at Carmel High School. I competed in the 200-meter backstroke and placed first place. I swam in the 50-meter backstroke and got second, and and also swam the 100-meter backstroke and placed third.
Go right ahead.
Now, just for clarification, this is a world competition, so this is like the Olympics for that age group, and so Wyatt was able to get all three colors: gold, silver, and bronze. So I asked these guys before we had the meeting tonight if you've ever watched them swim like down on the deck. They have a tremendous wake that goes behind them. It looks much like a motorboat. So my question was, is there a possibility that I could actually ski behind these guys? And they went, oh, maybe. These guys are amazing. Let's hear it.
needless to say, we can't wait to see how they do in this year's state competition. And then where they go from here, it will be amazing to watch their careers. When we go on to the next one? Okay. Champions Together is a partnership between the Special Olympics Indiana and the Indiana High School Athletic Association. You'll hear a lot more about that from some of our students here in a moment. But first I wanted to let you know that this past spring, the first Champions Together State Awards Luncheon was held, and at that ceremony, several Spirit of Unified Awards were presented to individuals that have been instrumental in the success of the program. Bruce Wolf was our co-sponsor, and Champions Together created the Champions Together initiative at Carmel High School since its inception since 2013. His efforts truly helped shape the culture and awareness and inclusion that results in the enriching experience for both our students with special needs and those students that are their partners. Carmel High School is regarded as a model school for others around the state. We are therefore pleased to recognize Wolfie as the recipient of the 2019 Champions Together Unified Administrator Award of the Year. You got to say something, Wolfie. Come on.
I'll be back.
You'll be back? Okay. We'll do it with all the kids.
My picture taken with Wolfie.
Yeah, well.
Yeah. This is sort of the next item on the agenda, the opportunity to speak a little bit about what the kids do. First, I want to thank the board and administration for this opportunity to share a little bit about what we do over there. Also, there are representatives from the IHSA, Special Olympics, and Champions Together in the audience today, and I want to thank them for creating this opportunity for young people. I certainly want to thank Dr. Harmis and the administration staff at CHS who have supported all our efforts. And finally, I want to say thanks to all of you out there that put your heart above your head and make a difference in the world. As is always my best maneuver, I'm now going to get out of the way and have the kids come up and tell you about what we do. With us tonight is the leadership team of Champions Together. That's senior Sophie Gates, and juniors Audra Marchese, Elizabeth Price, and Isabel Larco. If you guys will come up.
Hi guys, I am Audra Marchese, and through our presentation we will use a couple of terms. I just want to tell you what they mean. The first one is athlete. An athlete is an individual with an intellectual disability, and a partner is an individual without an intellectual disability. Champions Together is best defined as the bridge between IHSAA and Special Olympics Indiana. We provide opportunities for students with special needs to participate in events and sports at our school. Champions Together, to be required or to be titled as a special champion school, you have to meet the 4 pillars of whole school involvement, unified sports, fundraising, and inclusive student leadership. Champions Together at Carmel has received this banner for the past 7 years, which is how many years Champions Together we've had a chapter at Carmel High School. Beyond the Unified Champion banner, this past year they had initiated a new banner called the National Banner, and this had 10 pillars. And we wrote up all of our accomplishments for the 2018-2019 school year of Champions Together and submitted it. And we were accepted along with 13 other schools for the state of Indiana and numerous other schools across the country to receive this national banner. ESPN, who is the official announcer for Special Olympics, made what they called the National Honor Roll. And in the National Honor Roll, they picked one school from each state that they thought was the highest achieving school with Champions Together chapters. And for the state of Indiana, Carmel was chosen as that chapter.
Some of the events that Champions Together puts on includes bocce, which is a statewide tournament. Carmel High School is not in charge. It's Special Olympics Indiana that is, but we provide the facility and we host it and we invite the schools. Through the 2018-2019 school year, the average schools that came and competed with us was 9 schools. Our biggest event by far, which we are very proud of, is Mr. Carmel. It is by far the biggest committee that we put together to run because it is solely put on by Champions Together. It is a boys' pageant that throughout the year we teach them dances and fun things, fun acts to do. And the way that we incorporate the Inclusion Revolution is through the students with special needs disabilities being escorts. So they'll walk across the stage with one of the boys and they'll get their personal bio read out loud. It is also one of our events that contributes the most to awareness of using the R word. One of our other events is bowling. We like to take our team and committee to Woodland Bowl every year, another event put on by Special Olympics Indiana that we enjoy. We also have a basketball, swimming, and soccer clinic. The basketball committee, during the first half of a boys' game, will be the clinic where the kids will practice and just play around, and then during halftime of the game, they'll do a 3-on-3 game with an athlete with a partner. For swimming, it is not put on by a committee, but one of the students in our CT committee as a whole that represents the swim team puts it on, and they do relays and just games that the kids like to do. And for our soccer clinic, we do have a committee, and we try to incorporate the boys and girls soccer teams, mostly JV, in helping us run games and drills and fun things for the athletes to do.
I'm Isabel Arco. So Carmel High School has 3 unified sports. We have unified track, unified flag football, and unified cheer. Unified track and unified flag football are 2 actual sports at the high school. They are IHSAA recognized, and by this I mean like they are varsity sports at our school, and athletes and members of these teams can receive things such as varsity letters. The unified track team has 5 events. We have the 4x1, the 100, the 400, long jump, and shot put. There are also 2 types of partners in this sport. We have competitive partners and assistive partners. Competitive partners compete with and against athletes in these events, and assistive partners will help athletes in need with these events. For flag football, we have 3 athletes on the field at all times, and for our ratio of athletes or partners to athletes, we have 3 partners for every athlete. We also have a unified cheer team. However, that is considered more of a club at a school rather than a sport, but they cheer at every single home game that the unified flag football team has.
My name is Elizabeth Price. So our overall committee is made up of 56 students and unified athletes at Carmel. These students and athletes that accept their position on our committee vow to help us fulfill the 4 pillars of Champions Together. Within our larger committee, we do create smaller committees to help plan and execute all of our unified clinics and events. Some of the committees we will create will be for our unified soccer clinics, unified swimming, and one of our larger ones for Mr. Carmel. I would now like to introduce Mr. Simpson. His son is Sky Simpson. He's one of our athletes at Carmel who has changed the lives of so many partners. So.
So, as she says, I'm Steve Simpson. My son's name is Sky. I'm going to go back 19 years, but I'm not going to take 19 minutes to do this, okay? So 19 years ago, we got the news that our son, who hadn't yet been born, would have Down syndrome. So me being a guy, I'm also an engineer, so I went on the internet because I knew I could buy tools to fix Down syndrome. So you find out, you go through this process, a true process. You go through, you're against the disability, then you're accepting the disability, and then you appreciate the disability. So I'm at the point now where I appreciate the disability. I actually got there before he was born, but, you know, some guys don't. So when he was born, we had all the fears that you would normally have with a child with a disability. You know, how far is he going to go? What is he going to do? What happens to the goals that you had for him? And I can tell you that you still have as many goals. They're different. They're just as important as any other's goals. And one of the concerns that we have is friendships. What's his long-term friendships going to be? And that's why I want to talk about these ladies and the unbelievable job they do. So Sky also has some anxiety issues. If he walks into a room, he'll have a tough time walking into a room if he doesn't know the people in there, and he may have a tough time even if he does know the people. So a lot of times, you know, if he'll ask somebody to hold his, he'll ask people if he could hold their shirt, and he walks in that way. But a lot of that's been overcome because of people like these four young ladies here. They understand it, and it's just beyond me how they do. I mean, it's empathy, it's compassion, it's patience. So it's very comforting to me to know that they are changing the world, one meeting, one sports event at a time. And I just want to thank the board and IHSSA and Special Olympics and Wolfie and all of you. Because Sky, so I'll just tell you another story about Sky because I love doing that. So Sky's, he's 18 now. He's all about getting married. He's probably proposed to each of them at least once. And that's his outlook on life now, is he's a very, very positive kid. But one of the things that I learned and that they learned and that everybody learns hanging around Sky is, yes, he has Down syndrome, but he's not just a bunch of hugs and smiles. He's much, much more complex than that. And that's what I appreciate about Unified Sports, is all of the kids working with him end up understanding that. He's not just about hugs, and he's not just about smiles, and he's not just about, you know, stealing that kiss on the neck that he knows he's not supposed to do. They understand it, and he's starting to understand that he's a complex kid, and he has complex needs. And through the sports and the teamwork and the competition, everybody learns it together. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Simpson, for sharing your story. One thing I forgot to mention was that our committee does participate in a lot of events run by Special Olympics to help raise money. We participated in polar plunge and plane pole this year. We raised a total of $9,100 for Special Olympics Indiana and the R Word campaign. So this past summer, I got the amazing opportunity to intern at Special Olympics Indiana. And this amazing opportunity led to my friend Liam Price and I being nominated for U.S. Youth Ambassadors. We got this role, and we will be traveling all over, representing the Great Lakes region, advocating for unified champion schools. This past weekend, Mike, Liam, and I were in Chicago for an Inclusive Youth Leadership Summit, where we learned how to become better youth leaders. And then next month in October, we will be traveling to Washington, D.C. to meet the other youth ambassadors in our class and work alongside and get trained how to fulfill this role.
So as you guys can see, Champions Together at Carmel High School has not only changed our lives, and along with the 56 others that are on the committee, but we've also changed lives of the students at the high school, and especially those of the people who have been involved in our events.
Thanks again, and before we turn the kids loose, I'm going to invite Mr. Bobby Cox, who is the Commissioner of the Indiana High School Athletic Association and a Carmel High School grad, and Mr. Jeff Moeller, who is the CEO of Special Olympics Indiana, also a Carmel High School grad. Dr. Beresford, this is called the best at getting better. The aforementioned banner, I think they would like to present to these ladies.
Thank you. Okay. I will say, if you ever get the opportunity to go to any of these events, it changes your life to see the way that our kids interact together, all of our kids. It's absolutely amazing. It's heartwarming each and every time. So please make time to go to one of these events. Thank you very much.
Come on, man.
Okay, parents, do you guys want to take some photos? Okay, and then we'll get everyone in too, so.
I'll lose weight. 5 years ago, you were just fine. These digital images can't be shared, you know.
Minga, Tom, and Dr. B, and then Mr. Simpson, do you want to?
Steve, you want to join me?
You want to
Celebrity.
Congratulations, guys. You got, hold on, wait.
All right. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
All right, this is that pause. You're welcome to stay. You won't hurt my feelings. Thank you all. Thank you. Okay, so I understand we have nobody here for public comment, so we will move to consent. On the consent agenda this evening, we have the personnel report, claims, payroll, approval of gift applications, minutes for the workshop session of August 14th, and minutes for the regular session of August 26th. May I have a motion to approve consent?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? No, I would just, before we vote, I would just like to thank the donations, and I understand that we will be getting more information on how donations make it to our agenda at another meeting. We'll vote all in favor of approving consent. Please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. Thank you. Motion carries. Next on the agenda, we have actually three public hearings. I am going to suspend the regular board meeting. The first public hearing is on the 2020 budgets, and I will open the public hearing to allow for public input regarding the proposed 2020 budgets. On September 9th, Mr. McMichael presented the proposed 2020 budgets. The board discussed the proposal and authorized administration to advertise for this public hearing. Mr. McMichael, would you like to make any comments regarding the proposed budget before we invite members of the public?
Just that this public hearing was placed in the State of Indiana Online Gateway website on September the 10th, which is the current method for advertising for the public hearing, and it is an opportunity for any public comment regarding the budgets.
Thank you. At this time, I will offer members of the public an opportunity to make comments regarding the budget. There being no comments, we will close the first public hearing and move on and reconvene the board meeting to now suspend the board meeting for a second public hearing. At this time, I will suspend the regular board meeting and open a public hearing to allow for the public input regarding the proposed 2020 capital projects plan. Again, on September 9th, Mr. McMichael presented the proposed 2020 capital projects plan. The board discussed the proposal and authorized administration to advertise for a public hearing. Mr. McMichael, would you like to make any comments regarding this plan before we invite the public to comment?
Yes, this plan was advertised on the Gateway website with the state, but also locally in the Times, as is required by statute.
Thank you. At this time, I will again offer members of the public an opportunity to make comments regarding the capital projects plan. There being no members of the public wanting to speak, we will close public hearing number 2, reconvene the regular board meeting. Now we will suspend the meeting again and open this third and final public hearing to allow for public input regarding the proposed 2020 bus replacement plan. On September 9th, Mr. McMichael presented the proposed 2020 bus replacement plan. The board discussed the proposal and authorized administration to advertise for a public hearing. Mr. McMichael, would you like to make any comments regarding this plan before we invite members of the public to offer input?
Just that this plan was also advertised at both the Gateway website at the state level as well as locally in the Times.
There being no members of the public wishing to provide public input on the bus replacement plan, we will adjourn the third public hearing and reconvene to the regular Carmel Clay School Board meeting. Next on the agenda, we have a few action items. Action item number 1 is the bid award for Cherry Tree Elementary School condensing unit replacement and Carmel High School boiler number 1 replacement. Mr. McMichael, do you have any comments on this?
Just that this is a bid award for two items. One at Cherry Tree Elementary School, there's a condensing unit that needs to be replaced at $315,400, and that's recommendation is to Lehman's Mechanical Contractors. And the second item is a boiler, one of the boilers at Carmel High School, one of three actually at Carmel High School, and that is recommended to, that bid award is to North Mechanical Services in the amount of $400,000.
Thank you, Mr. McMichael. May I have a motion to approve the bid awards for Cherry Tree Elementary School condensing unit replacement and Carmel High School boiler number 1 replacement?
So,
A second?
second?
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Pam?
Yes, I just have a question. Is this boiler, or this, let's see, I'm sorry, the one we're replacing at Carmel High School, is this the boiler that was in the explosion?
No.
No.
No, this is, there's three main primary boilers there. This is a much larger boiler, actually, than what was part of the explosion. And so it's one of the original three boilers.
Okay, so we've already replaced the other boiler, is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Okay, and we've checked the other boiler to make sure that it's okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other comments or questions? I guess I'd just like to point out for those in the audience that these bids were sent out. 14 bids were solicited with 5 different responders. As usual, the Skillman Corporation tabulates the bids, provides recommendations, and makes sure that all the bids are in compliance with the requirements for the bid. And actually, this time we had a bidder who was a low bidder, but was determined to be non-responsive, so they withdrew their bid. So with there being no more discussions, we'll now take a vote. All in favor of approving the proposed bid awards, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. Thank you. Motion carries. Next on the agenda, we have a number of items for discussion. The first item is Program of Studies course changes. Dr. Dudley.
Yes, thank you. So this evening, I bring a proposal to you for the 2020-2021 Program of Studies at Carmel High School. And this proposal looks at a variety of new, modified, and deleted courses. Before this proposal was put together, we have a curriculum advisory committee at the high school that is made up of administrators, teachers, parents, to review the proposed courses from different departments. They talk about those courses, they talk about why they should be adopted, or maybe why they should be modified or deleted. And then that committee discusses and shares input with Dr. Harmis as well as with myself on what would be those next courses for next year. So several of the courses we're very excited about. We have several new courses, and some of these include Introduction to Entrepreneurship, Project Lead the Way Cybersecurity, which is a brand new course that we're adding to our Project Lead the Way suite of courses. Also, a new course in the Family and Consumer Science, which is Human and Social Services. And this allows our students to go out into the community and have opportunities to partner with different agencies, such as St. Vincent's or nursing homes, so they can have that work-based experience. And we also have 2 new IB courses that we are proposing. One is in the physical education department. It's exercise and health science, and this is a course that can be used as a science credit or a phys ed credit. And then we also have IB Environmental Systems and Societies in the science department. We also have 3 new courses in our Special Services Department. We have Applied English 11, Applied Geometry, and Applied U.S. History. And these are all courses that go along with our certification, our Certificate of Completion, and our students are required to either complete courses as electives, or I'm sorry, either credits or also units of study. And so this will allow them to complete that certification.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from the board? Katie?
On the family and consumer science one, the new work-based learning capstone, it says it allows for any CTE teacher. What is CTE teacher?
Career and technical education.
Thank you.
Any other questions? There being none, thank you, Dr. Dudley. Next on the agenda, we have a policy. It's the first reading of policy 0120.02, nepotism and relatives reporting to relatives. Dr. Dudley.
Yes, thank you. So our policy committee reviewed this policy as well as our attorneys at Church, Hiddle, and Antrim, and looked at the policy to update any language that might be needed in the policy, and these were the recommendations from our attorneys in the changes to this policy.
Do we have any questions from the board? There being none, thank you, Dr. Dudley. Next on the agenda, we have another first reading, policy 0242, professional growth requirements.
Yes.
Dr. Dudley.
Thank you. So our policy committee reviewed this policy and looked at the language of the policy. We also have one of the pieces that we changed in the policy is the professional program. The superintendent or the designee shall plan and implement a program of professional development. This policy also ensures that all of our teachers as well as support staff receive the required training from the state of Indiana. And that required training, we keep track of that in our Safe Schools program, so they receive a link, they do the training, and then we know who has had the training and who needs that training, so we continue to keep track of that.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from the board on that policy? None. Moving right along. Next, we have a first reading of policy 0243, professional meetings. Dr. Dudley.
So this policy was reviewed by our policy committee, and the recommendation is to delete this policy, feeling that we did not really have a need to talk about professional meetings, and it was taken care of in the last policy we just reviewed.
Thank you again. Any questions from the board? None. Thank you. Moving on. Next is first reading of policy 2120, employment of professional staff. Dr. Dudley.
Okay, so this policy also was reviewed by our policy committee, and we looked at one of the things that came up earlier this summer was Dr. Beresford asked for permission to employ an employee prior to the board meeting, and this policy does allow for that. And we changed the wording just a bit in the fourth paragraph down, where it talks about in the practice of hiring highly qualified staff members that the superintendent does have that authority to do that, and then the board would approve them at the next regularly scheduled board meeting. And then we also took out some information in this policy that really would be better suited into administrative guidelines rather than having those in the policy.
Thank you, Dr. Dudley. Do we have any questions from the board? There being none, thank you. Again, thank you, Dr. Dudley, and thank you to the policy committee for all their hard work bringing these to us.
We have one more.
Oh,
I did want to mention, though, on that last policy, just a little bit of an explanation why we would want to be able to authorize the hiring of an employee before it goes to the board. And in those cases, it's a lot of times in the summer where there's a lot of hiring to be done, and it's a very competitive environment. And the closer you get to the start of school, it's imperative that we hire people in there, and if we're authorized to hire them at that point, then they can resign from their other position, and then we can move the process along quicker, and that's to the employees' benefits on both school districts receiving and sending, and so it's a real good tool for us to be able to get the best and the brightest and hire them and get them in our system as quickly as possible.
Well, thank you again. I apologize for getting ahead of myself. Next is the first reading of Policy 4410, Promotion, Placement, and Retention. Again, Dr. Dudley.
Thank you. So this policy was also reviewed by our policy committee. There are some deletions in the policy that that used to be guidelines from the Indiana Department of Education. They are no longer accurate guidelines, so those are suggested as deletions. And then also the other deletions would be, we deleted those, and we feel like they would be better suited in administrative guidelines rather than in the policy itself.
Thank you again. Any questions from the board? Okay, now I will say thank you again to Dr. Dudley and to the Policy Committee for all their work they do bringing these to our meeting and keeping them updated. And since this is the first reading, they will be back again for approval. Thank you. Next, we'll move on to reports. The first report is the monthly financial update. Mr. McMichael.
Thank you. So we're through August, and I think it'll show up here in a minute, but the board can see that we had one question asked about salaries, and you'll see our salaries for the month of August were $8 million. Punch a button. There we go. So our salaries, we pay on 26 pays, and so 2 months of the year, we have 3 pays rather than 2, and that's the reason the salary expense is higher in August and also, I guess, in March. And so at this point, you'll see our cash balance, as is typically the case, went from $8.8 million down to $4.9 million. That's all very typical because part of our funding is our referendum funds, and we receive those funds through tax draws that are primarily twice a year. So we're really right on target where we would have projected we would be at this point in the year. Our operation fund, same thing, you'll see a bump in salaries because of the 3-pay month, and the cash balance here is can vary a bit because it really depends on the projects that we're doing and the expenses toward those projects. But of course, most of these projects are going very heavily during the summer months, and so again, this fund is supported with property tax as well. So it's typical that the cash will decline over the summer and as we get into the fall, and then we'll come back up again in December. So with that, I'd respond to any questions if you have any.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from the board? No. Thank you, Mr. McMichael.
Thank you.
The next report is a student data report. We'll turn it over to Dr. Dudley.
Before Dr. Dudley gets going on that, I wanted to kind of give a little warm-up. This is kind of a new thing we've added to our reports, and in discussions with the board and Dr. Dudley, we thought it'd be good to not only go through the financial things of the month and the meeting, but also to highlight some things instructionally in the achievement of our students. So throughout the year, we're going to get a variety of different data and information about student achievement. So I'm kind of excited to start this and add this to our reporting. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you. So this evening, I'm going to share a little bit about iLearn and the differences as far as iLearn and iStep, how our students did, and then how we might use this information to continuously to get better. So as you know, the state engaged in a new assessment last spring, which is iLearn. And interesting, I did not realize this, but it actually stands for Indiana Learning Evaluation Assessment Readiness Network. So there's a fun fact for everybody tonight to learn what iLearn actually stands for. So iLearn measures student proficiency as compared to the Indiana academic standards, and students in grades 3 through 8 take iLearn in English language arts and also math. Students in grades 4 and 6 take iLearn in science, and then grade 5 students take iLearn in social studies. Our students that take biology at the high school also take iLearn. So how is iLearn different from iStep? Well, one of the biggest differences between iStep and iLearn is that iLearn is a computer adaptive test. So this is a test that will give the students the opportunity, depending on how they do on a question, it will adapt either up or down on difficulty. Now, one thing that is different, we use the adaptive test with our NWEA MAP growth. That adapts up or down, and it also goes up to different grade levels or down grade levels. iLearn does not. iLearn stays on, so if a third grade student is taking it, it's based on the third grade standards, but what's adapted there is the difficulty of the question. So that's a little bit different than our NWEA growth testing. iLearn also is untimed. Our students have as much time as they need to complete the assessment. And another difference is iLearn assesses all of Indiana academic standards, including content literacy and media literacy in our English language arts, as well as the process standards in math, and then also the computer science standards in science. So our students, when they receive the scores, when the parents receive the scores, they receive a proficiency rating. In this proficiency rating, there's 4 different levels. The student is placed on one of these levels based on their overall scale score in that subject area. This is different from iStep as well. iStep, as you'll recall, had Pass Plus, Pass, and Did Not Pass. iLearn has the 4 different ratings, which is above proficiency, where the student has mastered all of current grade level standards and can apply those standards. At proficiency, where they've met the standards and they're demonstrating essential knowledge. Approaching proficiency, where they're almost there, but not quite have met the standards. And then below proficiency, where the students have not met those current grade level standards. So our iLearn results, as I'm sure you're aware, the results in the entire state are lower than what we're used to seeing on our iStep results. But iLearn, as I explained, is a very different test, so we cannot compare our iStep results with our iLearn results. However, one thing that we can look at, not comparing the 2 assessments, but we can look at how far are we from the state average. And interestingly, our iLearn scores are actually further from the state average than last year's iStep scores were from the state average. For example, our English language arts average scores for the corporation are 5.1 percentage points above the state average as compared to last year when you compared iStep. Math is 2.7 percentage points higher. Science is 1 percentage point higher, and then social studies is 4.4 percentage points higher. So as you can see, getting better. We want to continue, obviously we want to continue to get better and improve that, but that is one comparison we can make, even though we can't compare them to our iStep scores. But as you can see, our proficiencies across the board, the blue is the above proficiency and the green is at proficiency, and then the approaching and below would be counted as not proficient, obviously. So we're at about 75.9% in English language arts total students, 76.2% in math, 77.2% in science, and 80.3% in social studies. So digging further into the data and looking at that disaggregated data, we looked at our iLearn scores and for our different subgroups. So this first slide shows our English language arts disaggregated data, first looking at all of our students that took the English language arts incorporation, and then disaggregating that between female and males. And as you can see, we do have in the English language arts, there is quite a discrepancy between our females at proficiency and our males at proficiency. And one thing, you know, many times you see the females in English language arts do a little bit better than the males and vice versa in math. However, our scores in the next slide that I'll show you when we look at math, that actually does not hold accurate. So that is quite a discrepancy that we will need to dig into even more to say, what does our curriculum and our instruction look like so that we can meet the needs of both our female students as well as our male students. And also you can see the gaps in our other populations, whereas we have a range with our Asian students at 86.7% proficient, and a low with our Hispanic students at 47% proficient. So obviously our goal is to close all of those gaps and to help all of our students to become proficient, and we will dig into this data further to look at our not only the individual students, but we'll look at our programming across the board as well.
Where are our special needs students and our ENL students? Are they included in all of this information?
Yes, so this is this is broken down between our female and males and then our ethnicities, and so our special needs, our ENL students, our free and reduced lunch students are all included in these numbers. But then this next slide here, this actually compares looking at our socioeconomic with English language arts, and then our gen ed as compared to special ed, and then our non-English language learners as compared to English learners. So this is specific to those subgroups here.
I know in the past on ISTEP, the ELL students were given special accommodations, and we were able to read the test to them. Does the iLearn offer that as well? Can those students who are at level at a low level in their understanding of English, how are they doing on these tests? I mean, are they expected to take the test just like everybody else?
Yes, they are expected to take the test just as all of our students take the test. They do receive accommodations on the assessment based on their ILP, which is their individual learning plan for our ELL students. So just like we do an IEP, an individual education plan for our special needs students that has specific accommodations based on the needs of the students, all of our English learners receive an individual learning plan based on their individual needs of where they're at in language acquisition. And so they do have a variety of different accommodations that they can use. One is that they can use a dictionary in their native language to help with the translation. iLearn does have different accommodations that any student can use, which are multiple glossaries that are translated into different languages. They also have the text read to the students for any student that might need that accommodation, and that is all done on the computer as well. And then for our English language learners or our special needs learners, that if that accommodation is not acceptable, they can also have a human reader read it. But that's very few of our students where they have the read aloud. But all of those accommodations are still permissible.
Okay, I know on ISTEP there was the opportunity to do paper pencil. If a student wasn't very good on the computer or wasn't able to do it on the computer, does iLearn offer that as well?
So iLearn does have a paper pencil version. Very few students take the paper pencil. It is for a variety of reasons why they might take it. The difference, though, is if they take the paper pencil, that is not an adaptive assessment, so you do not get as rich data on that when you get the results. You get whether they're proficiency or not, but you don't get to see all of the other data pieces since we're not able to do an adaptive assessment in paper pencil. But some of our students did take that last year as a paper pencil, but it was very few. So looking at our English language arts data as we're comparing our paid socioeconomic, looking at the students that have paid lunches as compared to free and reduced, we do see a discrepancy and a gap there, as well as in our gen ed as compared to special ed and our non-English language learners and our English language learners for English language arts desegregated data. So those things, again, we will continue to dig down and look at our programming to see where our needs are. So our math desegregated data, As you can see, as I shared with our English language arts between our females and our males, we did see quite a discrepancy in the two areas. But in math, our females are, the average is 75.5% proficient as compared to 76.9%. So they're pretty much right on target, where you're not seeing that discrepancy as we do in language arts. Again, here we have our Asian population at a 92% proficient in math, and with a low in our Hispanic population, they're 50% proficient. So those are areas, again, that we'll need to look at to make sure that we can close that achievement gap. And then looking at our socioeconomic, our special ed, as well as our English language, you can see we have achievement gaps in those areas that we'll need to continue to work in as well in our math areas. So in science as well, we have, looking at our students that are proficient in science, in our female and males, we have them, they're pretty much right on track with each other, where our females are just a tick higher at 77.9% as compared to our 76.6% with our males. And then again, here we have our Asian students at the 89.1% proficient as compared to our black students who are 51.3%. So we'll need to, but the gaps are not as large in our science as they are in our English language arts as well and math. And then looking at our science data at our socioeconomic, gen ed, special ed, and English language learners, you can see we do have those gaps with one of our largest gaps in our special ed as well as our English language learners that we'll need to dig down into. And again, remember our science, this is data that is only reflecting 4th grade and 6th grade students, because only 4th and 6th grade. This does not include the biology data at the high school, because that's a whole nother data set. And then in our social studies, this is data that is reflecting our 5th grade students, because our 5th grade students take social studies. As you can see, our students here are doing pretty well in social studies in 5th grade, where we have overall 80.3% proficiency. And so we have, our girls, our females and males are about even there as well. But we do have some achievement gaps that we'll need to continue to look at. And the same as our socioeconomic, special ed, as well as English language arts. So how might we use this information? I'm sure you've read a lot in the media where, we need to put a stopgap, not use the information. But we can learn from this information. We can take it for what it's worth and learn from it, and how we can continue to get better in Carmel Clay schools. And so one of the things at the district level we're looking at it from a big picture. So we're looking at standards. Are there specific standards that our students are doing very well on, and standards that they're not doing well on? Where do we need to look at the curriculum? Do we need to look at some instructional practices? Do we also need to look, one of the big differences, this is a computer assessment. And so a lot of the questions that they ask, the way they ask those questions might look a little different to our students. And how do we better prepare our students to be prepared? Because whether they're taking iLearn or some other computer assessment, this will help them in the future regardless. Where some of the changes that are different from iStep is where they have to choose multiple answers, or they may have to cite evidence within the text, and they highlight that evidence. That's all part of the assessment. And so that is a little bit different, but those are things that our students will be expected to do in other computer assessments that they take throughout their year. So we need to make sure that we are preparing our students for that. At the school level, we look at what does this speak to our school improvement, and where do we need to get better. So our school level data, they use this as a data point to really disaggregate and look at all of their different student groups. But remember, this is just one data point, and we use a variety of different data points to form those school improvement goals, but it will help us lend to what professional development do we need to work with for our teachers to help them better prepare our students. Then at the teacher level, where the teacher can look at their students from the previous year to see, are there some different instructional strategies, are there different standards that they need to focus on more if they're looking at their whole class where maybe their students did not do as well on a standard as some others. And then also specific assessment methods that maybe they didn't feel like they didn't prepare their students as well for, and they can beef that up for this year's group of students. And then we drill down to the individual students and look at where our individual students are, where their strengths are, where their needs are, and we plan that instruction for them. So we do it at all different levels. We use iLearn as one data point in conjunction with a variety of other pieces of information about our students in order to provide information of where we need to go next. So what questions might you have?
Pam?
I know in the past, when we did iStep, they did a pilot on the program or on the tests, and they sent those to the schools so that the schools had an idea of what the test was going to look like. The other thing is, iStep used to do a practice test before we took the test in the classroom, so that the students had an idea of what they might be seeing on the practice test. Were those offered with this test so that the schools were aware of what was coming?
Yes. So the IDOE puts out for the first part of your question, they put out the test blueprints with sample test questions, so what those test questions might look like. And then they have opportunities for students to be able to see, not obviously every question, but different types of questions. And then the students are all required to take a practice test prior to being able to log in and take the iLearn operational test. So all students have an opportunity to see the types of questions.
I've heard that this test was testing some of the standards that are sort of obscure, standards that may not be as well taught in the classrooms, that they were throwing out other ideas and things to kind of catch the students. Did you notice that that was the case with this particular test when it was being given? Because there's definitely a discrepancy between this test and iStep, and I'm very glad that they've decided not to use it this year to grade schools, because this is the other thing with this test, that I'm afraid now we're going to again be teaching to the test. And I know that in the past, when iStep kept changing over the years, there would be grace years, but we'd have to make sure that we taught the kids what they needed to teach in order to make it into to do well on iStep the next year. So this is very concerning to me, because we've already been through all of this multiple times in the past.
Yes, so iLearn is a brand new test, but it's testing Indiana standards. Now, I wouldn't say it was necessarily obscure standards. However, it tests more standards than iStep tested. For example, it does test the media literacy standards where iStep did not test that. It tests the process standards in math where iStep didn't necessarily test those. So they're different. They're additional standards, but they're still part of the standards that we're teaching in our curriculum. So we will need to continue to work on that. But our goal is not to teach to the tests, but our goal is to make sure that our students are earning mastery on the Indiana academic standards, and we want to make sure that our students understand how they're being tested, how they're asking those assessment questions in that computer adaptive way. So we want to give them every opportunity to see those different tests, but not to teach to the test to say, because those questions will change all of the time. They're not going to be the same questions every year either.
And just to clarify, the hold harmless and all that is being talked about, but it can't happen until the legislature takes action on that. I haven't heard anybody that disagrees with that, downtown. But just for information, that decision has to be made. It has to be done by the legislature in the next session.
Katie?
Well, first I want to say thank you, Dr. Dudley, and thank you, Dr. Beresford, as we had requested as a board to have more information about testing and curriculum and everything, so I'm very excited about this new portion to our meetings. How does this very different test, but as far as trends go, compared to what we see on, like, for example, the NWEA?
So those are two different assessments. The NWEA is what they call a formative assessment, so we're looking at not only achievement but growth. And as I said, the NWA is adjusting up or down on different grade level standards based on how the students do. So we really, in iLearn is a summative assessment. So that's an assessment of how did the students do as compared to the Indiana State standards. And it's the specific grade level standards. So we really can't compare the two NWA and iLearn as far as it's not a one-to-one, like if they did well on iLearn, chances are they're going to do pretty well on NWA, but it's not a comparison between the two. One of the things that NWA will do eventually, once they have enough data, is they have a linking study that they did for iStep that would predict how the students might do on iStep, and it was pretty accurate because they take all of the data that of the schools that are using NWA in Indiana, and then they develop a formula through a variety of different statistical analysis to determine how they might do. Once they have enough data for iLearn, then they'll do that same linking study so that we can look at, as our students take this formative assessment, how they might do and where are the things we need to maybe beef up before they take the iLearn assessment. But we're not there yet since they only took it for 1 year.
I really appreciate you making that clarification, because I do know that there were a lot of parents who, don't understand the difference, and then also saw the scores from one thing to another, and then we're comparing those. So I appreciate that clarification.
Lynn?
So I assume that the data we see here is at a district level, because the iLearn is conducted for multiple grades, right? And do you have data like by grade level, so the grade level teachers will have more information just for them, more relevant for them?
Yes. So you're correct. The data in this presentation is grades 3 through 8 combined, but we do have the data that drills down by the individual grade level, by the individual grade levels at the school level, and then also obviously all the way down to the individual student level. And our teachers and principals have access to that data to look at down to the standard level. So they can look at a very specific standard and say, okay, here, how did my students in my classroom do, or how did the students in my 3rd grade at my school do on these standards? And then they have the opportunity to say, okay, and how was that assessed? So there's sample questions they can go, there's another document where they can link to it and say, what types of questions were the students asked? It's obviously not the questions they were asked, but the types of questions and how they're asking those. So that helps our teachers to better prepare our students to say, here's the standard and this is how they'll be assessed on that standard. And they'll focus on the ones, first of all, that students maybe did not do well in. And there's many different reports that they can drill down to.
I see. Thank you. Appreciate that information for teachers. I also want to know what the consequences are for students who are below proficiency. Like, is their advance to the next grade affected by not, passing iLearn?
Right.
Things like that.
So there are no consequences as far as promotion to the next grade level. Obviously, if a student is below proficiency, we want to look at that information and look at what we need to do to help that student to meet proficiency, but there's not a consequence that they have to be retained in the grade level that they're in if they are not at proficiency.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yes, I have another question. Are teachers walking around in the computer labs or wherever they're taking these and paying attention to the students that are taking the test? Because I know when we did paper pencil and I walked around the room, I was able to see where a student was not answering questions, was getting frustrated with the test, I knew what was happening with that particular student on those particular tests and why they didn't do so well even before we got the results. Are teachers able to do that now that it's on the computer? Are they able to see the same things? And also with the computer, are there more distractions for students who are taking the test or fewer distractions? I mean, are they distracted by I know they can't, the student who's sitting next to them is not taking the same test, but is that a distraction?
So to answer your first question, yes, the teachers are monitoring the implementation of iLearn. So they start the students on with the test. They have to start every student to make sure it's the right student, and that in an elementary school that's not a big deal, but when you have much larger groups at the middle school, you need to make sure that Roger is taking Roger's test on the computer. And so the teachers are, once they start those, they are monitoring the students as they're taking it. Now, are they, there's very much they can only give the directions. They cannot, just like when you gave iStep, there are very specific rules on what you can and cannot do when they're taking the assessment, but they are monitoring those. And then as far as the distractions go, our students, now that we have the influx, our students can take iLearn on the Chromebooks, which has made it much easier because we had a lot more Chromebooks last year, and this year we have even more Chromebooks in the classrooms. So the students actually will take iLearn in their class. So at the middle school level, they'll take English Language Arts in their English Language Arts classroom. They'll take math in their math classroom because they're able to do that on their Chromebooks. Many of our students do just like they do for any test. They have their privacy folders that they put up so that they eliminate the distractions that are going on. So I don't think there's more distractions because of the computer.
Those are allowed for privacy.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Thank you.
Well, thank you first for adding the standard student data report to the agenda, especially when out of 10 guiding principles, only one is financial. I think it's important for us to get information monthly. And then second, thank you for a very timely topic with all of this being all over the news. And I found that slide with the color bars very positive compared to all the news that we say, scores are down, scores are down, scores are down. I mean, even though the numbers are not as high as we would like or what we're used to, I don't think it's as bad, at least in Carmel, for what we hear if we just read the newspaper. So thank you. Any other questions? No. We will move on to reports. We had on the agenda this evening a report from Katie on the Carmel Redevelopment Commission, but we are going to not have that this evening, and we will get a updated report next month. So next we have the superintendent's report. Dr. Beresford.
Thank you. First, I just want to thank Dr. Dudley for that report. Did a nice job on that. And just wanted to highlight just 3 things that she said that I think are important, especially in this kind of test sensitivity time we're in right now. One is that a one-shot, test like that is not what we would want to use to determine our success or failure, or even determine a student's ability on a high-stakes one-shot test. But it's just simply another data point, And that was a really good point you made, Dr. Dudley, that in any kind of assessment we give students, that there's points of it that we can take that and compare it to, like our NWEA reports or whatever the tests that the teachers are given, and then we can get a better picture and make sure that we're doing it. The best use, this is point number 2, of all of this testing and assessment is to inform instruction. We use that information to see what a kid needs and then try to, if they're behind, catch them up, try to identify what concepts are they missing and or what concepts are they very well. And one of the things that you said I thought was really good in that essence is it's more valuable for, a lot of the assessments we give, they're valuable if they go, there is no top end, they don't top out, they continue because some of our kids are well above standard. So it really needs to be something that's open. And finally, I would caution everybody, don't compare scores. Really appropriate use of it is for us to, try to be the best at getting better, try to do a better job in our classrooms with our kids and meet their needs. Not to compare ourselves to other school districts or other settings, because every setting in Indiana is different, and each school has their own different challenges. And so I'd refrain from doing that for sure. My report is, we got a lot going on right now, so I'll go quickly, but I did want you to know that we did have our very first Carmel Clay Schools School Safety Referendum Community Meeting at Carmel High School, and that was last week. And we do have the next one coming up, which will be tomorrow, the 24th, and that will be at Clay Middle School at 6:30 in the auditorium. We've also had meetings scheduled on the 26th, Thursday at Carmel Middle School, and then October 3rd at Creekside Middle School, all at 6:30, all in the auditoriums. So I wanted to get the word out to the community that they're available, and there'll be factual information about the school safety referendum, what we want to do with that. Along those lines, I just finished faculty informational presentations number 10 and 11 today regarding factual information for the faculty. I have 5 scheduled dates to go, and if you're doing your math, that adds up to 16, and that's because at Carmel High School we did an AM session and a PM session because there's a lot of teachers there, a lot going on. And the purpose of that is just to inform the teachers and also to let them know what the rules are and what they can do and what they cannot in regards to referendums. So wanted you to know about that. This is homecoming week, and I found out homecoming kind of spills over into all the schools, and so many of our schools are getting in the spirit, and today's theme was Tourist Day. So you saw one of our swimmers, they were wearing kind of tourist outfits. The faculty got involved too. I visited several schools today, and we had a lot of fanny packs and Hawaiian shirts, and we had some serious tourists out there. So the kids are having a lot of fun, and so is the staff. Tomorrow is Hippie versus Hipster Day. I don't even know what that means. Wednesdays, they have individual class themes, but I do have some inside information for you if you're interested. You want to know? Okay, freshmen are going to be doing Halloween, so I'm guessing we'll have some Halloween stuff going on. Sophomores are doing Disney, so you can the mouse will be in the house. And then juniors doing space, and then the seniors have got an interesting one. It's called Under the Sea. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of creativity is going to be going on there. Thursday is Country versus Country Club. So I kind of get a picture of what that might be. And of course, Friday is going to be Blue and Gold. Homecoming Parade, which is a decades-long tradition, will start at 1 p.m. Parade route begins at high school on Main. It goes to Range Line, then back to 136 to the football stadium. And I got to hang out with the leadership at Carmel High School. They're really doing some change-ups at for the homecoming gathering there for the pep session, so it should be pretty good. Along the safety note, registration is now open for the 2019 Fall Parent School Safety Academy. Mr. Woodward put that on last year. It was a big hit. I know, Mike, you attended that. And this academy is unique, and it's interactive, and it'll teach parents school safety principles and fundamentals that guide all the different response protocols that we do in our schools. So the dates of that are October the 23rd and October the 24th. And you can learn more about that on our website, and we'll have information when we do the recap that Courtney will be doing of the game. One of the highlights for me here in the last couple of weeks was I got to go to the boys soccer game, and it was their 8th annual Make Good Decisions game. That was on September the 13th. And in that game, they honor a former teammate, Brett Finbloom, to raise awareness of Indiana's lifeline law. And Brett died of alcohol poisoning, and the idea behind it is that a law was passed by Senator Jim Merritt, was I think the originator of that bill, and the law gives amnesty amnesty from prosecution to anyone who calls or texts 911 for help for someone in need of medical attention. So in other words, if someone passed out at a party and students shouldn't be afraid to make that call because they will not be arrested, and all you have to do is call for help. And so Senator Jim Merritt explained that lifeline law, and then he handed it over to me, and I emphasized to the students that just as you won't be charged by law enforcement, you also will not be given any consequence by the Carmel High School administration, not from coaches, not from sponsors, not from directors, because we believe saving a life is more important than the consequence in that situation. And so basically I left him with two things. One, I said there's never a bad time to make a good decision, to make the right decision. And the last thing, I just asked him to just continue to keep taking care of one another. And there really is a culture of care at Carmel High School, and that was a pretty special evening. I want to congratulate 48 students at Carmel High School who are named National Merit Semifinalists. And these are students who have received this award. These kids that receive this award are in the top 1%, actually less than 1% of high school seniors. The kids that earn these honors are extremely bright thinkers, but they're also extremely hard workers. And they put in hours and hours of work in rigorous courses of study and to reach this pinnacle, to reach that level. I'm extremely proud of these kids and also their support team, the parents and the staff and other people who helped them achieve this honor. National Merit Semifinalist is one of the top awards a scholar can get in our country. So we look forward to recognizing them. We're going to have them here at the school board meeting on the 28th. So we'll have 48 visitors on that night. That's pretty exciting. Just another heads up that we're going to be doing the Hamilton County Kids Coach Drive, and that coach drive starts September 30th through October 9th. So each school will be a drop-off site for families who want to donate a new or gently used winter coat, spring coat, and then winter accessories, hats, gloves, scarves. The collections are taken to the Hamilton County Kids Coats Warehouse, and then they sort them all out, and then they give them out to the Hamilton County families that need coats. Last year we collected over 1,500 coats, 500 lightweight coats, and 400 plus different types of accessories, hats and gloves and that sort of thing. So we want to try to beat that record and meet those needs for folks that need that here with winter coming. Of course, if you didn't hear, our marching band competed at the Bands of America Regional, and that was held at Louisville, Kentucky, and they were the grand champions. So they won that, and in all the category, they have category award winners in those competitions. They won them all, and so the band's off to a great start, moving forward to try to repeat as national champs again. Boys tennis team are the MIC champions. They dominated pretty well and did a nice job, which brings me to my bell ringer. And my bell ringer's got a little different slant. And I want to highlight that the football team on Friday night won an overtime thriller, a really excited overtime game over Lawrence North with a score of 23-20. And I want to congratulate them on the big win. But my takeaway came after the winning touchdown was scored. And I brought a video clip. You think we can play that? Let's see, I just want you to watch this, and I would encourage you to watch it till the end and keep an eye on number 12. Okay?
Oh, shoot.
Number 12.
It's going to take a second. I hit the wrong button.
Do you want me to keep talking?
Keep talking.
Do some of this?
Good. Yeah, do some improvising.
I just happened to be standing right by the end zone when they did the last play to go in. And so I had my phone out, so I thought, well, if we may score on this one. So I took my camera out and put it on video to videotape the play, just to see. Actually, I videotaped quite a few of the last plays of that game because it's really exciting. And what had just happened was Lawrence North had scored a field goal, so they were up 23. I think it was 23-20 or something. Well, the final one was 23-20, so it would have been, they had 17. And so, and they kicked it to get to 20, and so then we were up. So not going to happen? Well, that's okay. I think we're going to have to abandon ship on the video, but I'll just tell you what happened.
You
want me to do
Don't we?
announcements first and then?
Yeah, you want to try that? Go ahead and do the announcements, and then we'll...
And then we'll come back.
If not, we'll leave it as a cliffhanger right now. I'll tell you that.
For all of those watching live, just watching tape. So next is announcements. On October 2nd and October 7th, we have 2 school board special session meetings. These 2 are required as part of our collective bargaining process with the Carmel Teachers Association. There we go.
We've got audio.
Just a master. Okay. October 14th is our next school board workshop session. October 10th and 11th, out of order, is fall break. October 28th is the school board regular session. And November 11th is the school board workshop session. Looks like we're live and ready to go with the video.
That's my bell ringer. High school sports is I love high school sports, but a lot of it's not about the score of the game. But when they were all running back to the bench, number 12 stops, he heard some kids yelling, and he turns around and sees them, and he goes back and he gives those little kids a high five. That's something that we'll never forget. And I just commend our quarterback, Mr. Osborne, on being a person of good character, being a good leader, and for trying to make a difference, and just the positive influence he can have. So that concludes my report. Thank you.
Well, thank you. So we will be able to end on that high note. We'll all high five you as we go out of the meeting. I will take a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Thank you. Meeting adjourned.